Imagine being offered the keys to the biggest technological revolution in human history, not just once, but twice. And both times, you looked at the future right in the face and simply said, no. This isn't just a story about a bad quarter. This is the story of how the undisputed king of the tech world, a company that practically built the modern era, managed to sleepwalk through $2 trillion revolutions. Today, the giant is bleeding. Tens of thousands of layoffs, a stock price flashing back to the late 1990s, and rumors of a complete corporate collapse. So how do you lose a monopoly? How do you miss out on powering every smartphone on Earth and then completely blindside the AI boom? To understand the magnitude of this failure, we have to go back to when Intel wasn't just a company, it was a religion. The Silicon Empire. If you owned a computer in the 90s or 2000s, you knew Intel. That iconic four-note chime wasn't just a marketing gimmick, it was the sound of absolute market dominance. Intel didn't just design computer chips, they manufactured them. They owned the entire process, from sand to silicon. This vertical integration was their superpower. It gave them a brutal, suffocating grip on the entire PC market. They were playing a completely different game than everyone else. While competitors scraped by, Intel was printing money. But success is a terrible teacher. When you sit on the throne for too long, you stop fighting to win, you just fight to not lose. The culture inside Intel shifted. It stopped being led by visionary engineers who wanted to change the world and started being run by bean counters. The focus moved from what's the next big leap to how do we squeeze another 2% of profit out of our current chips. And that exact mindset set the stage for the most expensive phone call in corporate history. The $100 billion hang-up. The year is 2005. Apple is working on a top-secret project, a phone that is also a widescreen iPod and an internet communicator. Jobs naturally goes to his trusted partner, Intel CEO Paul Otellini. Jobs wants Intel to build the brain for this new device, but there's a catch. Jobs is demanding a specific low price per chip. Otellini takes the deal to his financial team. They run the numbers, they look at the volume Apple is projecting, they look at the margins, and the spreadsheets tell a very clear story. The math doesn't work. Developing a new low-power chip for a phone would cost more than it would make, so Intel says no. Think about that. They said no to the iPhone. We all know what happened next. Apple went to Samsung and eventually started designing their own chips using architecture from a little British company called ARM. The smartphone revolution exploded. Overnight, the world shifted from bulky desktop PCs to tiny supercomputers in our pockets. Intel assumed mobile devices were a niche market. They were wrong, dead wrong. They entirely missed a market that would eventually become vastly larger than the PC industry. ARM processors became the absolute standard for mobile, leaving Intel locked outside the biggest party in tech history. The AI blind spot. You would think missing the smartphone would be a wake-up call, a near-death experience that forces a company to reinvent itself. But Intel was still coasting on massive PC and server profits. They were comfortable. While Intel was licking its mobile wounds, another giant was quietly building an empire right under their nose, Nvidia. For years, Nvidia just made graphics cards for gamers, making video games look pretty. But Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang, realized something profound. The same parallel processing power needed to render millions of pixels on a screen was exactly the kind of math required for artificial intelligence. Jensen bet the entire farm on AI. He built software called CUDA, making it easy for researchers to use Nvidia GPUs for machine learning. And what was Intel doing? They laughed it off. They believed AI was just a passing fad, a tiny workload that their traditional CPUs would eventually handle. Even when they tried to build their own graphics chips, a project called Larrabee, it was a spectacular disaster. Then, ChatGPT dropped. The world woke up to the reality of generative AI.
Suddenly, every massive tech company on Earth, Google, Microsoft, Meta, were scrambling to buy tens of thousands of AI chips, but they weren't calling Intel, they were calling Nvidia, because Intel had literally nothing to offer. To make matters worse, Intel's legendary manufacturing, their ultimate superpower, had completely stalled. For years, they struggled and failed to shrink their chip sizes, while a Taiwanese company called TSMC zoomed right past them. Suddenly, a company that used to own the entire computer industry was buying its most advanced manufacturing from TSMC and watching Nvidia become a $3 trillion company. Intel wasn't just losing, they were becoming irrelevant. The fall of the Titan. Which brings us to today, the brutal reality of 2024 and beyond. Intel is fighting for its absolute survival. Pat Gelsinger, an old-school Intel engineer, was brought back as CEO to save the sinking ship. But turning around a massive, deeply bureaucratic hardware company takes years and billions of dollars, and Wall Street has lost its patience. They are slashing 15% of their global workforce. They are bleeding cash trying to build new foundries in the US, hoping to catch up to TSMC. They are a titan on their knees, begging the market for just a little more time. Intel's story is the ultimate cautionary tale of corporate arrogance. It proves that in technology, nobody is too big to fail. When you stop innovating, when you let the accountants overrule the engineers, and when you refuse to cannibalize your own product, the market will gladly do it for you. They missed the phone in our pockets. They missed the AI brain in the cloud. The trillion-dollar question now is, can a giant that slept through 2 revolutions wake up in time to survive the next one? Or is Intel Inside destined to become nothing more than a memory? If you found this breakdown fascinating, hit that subscribe button. We dive deep into the brutal, high-stakes world of tech business every single week. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.